To me, the most powerful aspect of Jungian psychology is the insight that it provides into the fact that all of us experience the world very differently. We all unconsciously project our own personality and its respective lens onto others around us, while at the same time assuming everyone sees the world the way that we do. Or at least, we unconsciously believe they should. In my opinion, this projection is the source of almost all human conflict. When someone processes a situation in a way that makes us feel uncomfortable or in a way that's inappropriate to us, we experience resistance to that person. We're all projecting ourselves onto the world. The issue arises when someone projects with a different frequency. In a way, all human conflict is sourced in an inability to understand. For this video, I think it's helpful to think of each function as a frequency. On the color spectrum of visible light, a low frequency emits red light, while a high frequency violet. The lower the frequency, the broader the wavelength. The higher the frequency, the tighter and the quicker the vibration. This is a helpful analogy for the energy of introverted and extroverted functions. Extroverted functions are a broader frequency, while introverted functions are a tighter and more specific frequency. According to Jung, all of us move around the world using thinking or logic, T, feeling or value systems, F, intuition and pattern recognition, N, and sensory or the physical world, S. We all use all four letters, but in very different ways. Depending on your type, you use half of your letters with a personal high frequency, and the other half in a polar and opposite way with a lower and broader frequency. For the sake of this video, how you prioritize those functions is less relevant to the frequency they emit relative to their opposing counterpart. The point is, to the introverted functions, the extroverted equivalent will feel shallow. That means half of our personality is shallow relative to 50% of the world. And what's happening here is the introverted functions respect their letter, while the extroverted functions will flaunt their respective letter and share it with everybody. Introverted functions are personal, while the extroverted are impersonal. When you cross wires on this and people don't respect something in the same way you do, you'll internalize that as shallow and often inappropriate. And oftentimes, your nervous system will respond. This is because we all unconsciously assume and project that the way we move through the world is the safest. At the very core of our misunderstanding and conflict is fear created by the different ego structures that these functions create in us. So with this context, let's compare our functions to prove in a way we're all shallow. Let's start with FE and FI. Introverted feeling is a deep ocean of emotional processing, while extroverted feeling is a broad array of emotional awareness. One is deep, one is wide. To the person with introverted feeling, there is a deep respect for the intricacy and the complexity of emotions. FI takes responsibility to process internal emotions multiple levels deep. FI has a very high frequency for quick emotional flow and processing, and this is the default state. Because FI takes so much responsibility for emotional depth, it'll struggle to appreciate extroverted feeling. Because extroverted feeling is about a spectrum of feelings, it's a lower frequency and concerns itself with breadth. Relative to FI, FE is shallow and it's broad. Therefore, for an FI user, the FE will feel shallow and in many cases annoying if imposed on the FI. As an additional rub, the introverted function is personal. Therefore, as FE impersonally flaunts values, feelings, and shares without abandon, the FI will be made to feel very uncomfortable. For the FI user, FE feels like improperly handling a piece of fine china. What's important to realize is that both FI and FE are blind to certain aspects of reality. FI is blind to the emotional spectrum, while FE is blind to the personal depth of their own emotions. The blind spots are created by the frequency each is emitting and its resulting cognitive polarity. So to 50% of the population with the FI function, FE users are very shallow. Let's talk about TE and TI. Introverted thinking is multiple layers deep of logic. In the same way FI is a deep ocean of emotional processing, TI is like a 100-story basement of logical depth. TI can block bang what works at a deeper level than any other type. To the person with introverted thinking, there is a deep respect for the complexity and nuance of logic and logical structures. There's also a respect for the time it takes to figure things out, which is why a TI can focus on one thing for so long and dig and dig and dig down into its layers. TI has a very high frequency for respecting depth and logic. This is because it's its default state. So because TI takes so much responsibility for logical depth, it will struggle to appreciate the extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is about the broad spectrum of logic, and so it's a lower frequency. Relative to TE is shallow and broad. For a TI user, the TE will feel shallow and in many cases annoying if imposed on the TI. TI often feels that TE moves too fast. TE assumes it has figured things out because something works with a few people or solves maybe one problem. The introverted thinking function is personal as well. Therefore, as TE impersonally flaunts logic and shares all of its ideas, the TI will be very skeptical and critical of it. However, for the TE, because logic is something we figure out collectively, it doesn't hurt to throw out an idea that doesn't end up working. For the TI, it's usually only going to present what it believes to work at multiple levels and what it's spent a lot of time thinking about. Both the TI and TE are blind to certain aspects of reality. TI is blind to how effective working with others can be, while TE is blind to how much can be accomplished if you slow down and respect the time it takes to figure something out. These blind spots are created by the frequency each is emitting and its resulting cognitive polarity. So to 50% of the population, TE users are very shallow. NE and NI. Introverted intuition is narrowed down patterns and concepts for self. NI is very uncomfortable leaving options open when it comes to the patterns. For example, when it comes to worldview, the NI wants to land on something. It wants something to sink its teeth into and then move on. While it can update this, it feels the safest settling on a pattern or concept that repeats itself in reality and then moving forward from there. To the NI is a little confusing. To make matters worse, NE doesn't seem to take much seriously relative to the NI. Concepts are impersonal and often a means to a new funny way of seeing things. NE doesn't want to land. It's afraid to narrow down any concept because what if there is a better one that we missed? NE gathers new concepts and patterns without abandon and typically is a nomad as far as worldview is concerned. To be clear, NEs can settle on a worldview, but they'll always do so somewhat reluctantly, unconsciously challenging the status quo of that tribe that they settle in if they do settle. NE sees possibilities, while the NI sees pathways. To the NE, there are multiple ways something can go. NE is good at seeing patterns, but not interested in narrowing down the future. To the NE, there are many ways a thing can go. The NI is interested in figuring out the most probable pathway and acting on that premise. Both NI and NE are blind to certain aspects of reality. NI is blind to the possibilities, while NE is blind to the probabilities of moving forward. These blind spots are created by the frequency each is emitting and its resulting cognitive polarity. Therefore, to NE feels shallow and like it won't settle down. NI wants the NE to join it in the depths and specifics of pattern recognition, while NE wants to joke, laugh, and play on the surface of connecting patterns without being tied down to one specific pathway. To 50% of the population, NE feels very shallow. SE and SI. Introverted sensing is narrowed down sensory, specific sensory. SI is very uncomfortable without sensory specifics and wants a schedule or a plan in place for moving around in the world. Without it, it can often feel lost. SE is okay living in the moment and creating all sorts of unpredictable sensory chaos. In fact, SE learns how to move around in the world in this way without any issue. SI finds this abrasive because it has nothing to stick to or ground it. To the SI, SE is overwhelming. SE feels controlled by schedules and doesn't feel it can fully be itself when it's limited in the sensory. The best descriptor of SE is being in the moment. There is no plan. In most cases, SE figure it out as they go, unless they absolutely have to schedule. Things are personal to the SI. Certain possessions and even people will be locked onto and roped into that SI's inner circle. It causes extreme grief for the SI to lose any of these inner circle things because the SI takes serious ownership of them. Things are not as personal to the SE. As fast as the SE can gather new things, it will dispose of old things. Things are a means to an end of experiencing the world for the SE user. Both SI and SE are blind to certain aspects of reality. SI is often blind to the multiple ways one can be in the moment, while SE is often blind to the calm of order and organization. These blind spots are created by the frequency each is emitting and its resulting cognitive polarity. To the SI, SE is very shallow. In conclusion, the truth is 50% of all of us is shallow in unique ways and 50% of us is very in depth. There are not shallow people and deep people in the world objectively. It's all relative to what we each prioritize. To you, certain people are going to feel very surface and shallow. Others will feel deep. But it really depends on which parts of you and which parts of them you're looking at. We're all a unique combination of cognitive polarities that emphasizes certain things and processes others on the surface. And each of those combinations result in a magnificent expression of self and unique gifts and talents that endow the world with more beauty. So the next time you're tempted to call someone shallow, remember 50% of you is also shallow, and your experience of them is a projection of your own functions.